When Christopher Columbus linked the New World to the Old in 1492, he changed both of them forever. Soon the sea lanes to the west were explored and charted, and the American continent unveiled. This week, a tall ships race to mark 5 centuries of Atlantic crossings ended in Liverpool. On board, the successors to Columbus, young and old, came from many nations. This was their way of saluting the man who sailed into the unknown. In early July, the greatest fleet of tall ships ever assembled for a race dropped anchor in Boston Harbor. 76 of them, from mighty square riggers with masts 170 feet high to vessels a fraction the size. There's little in this dockside scene that Columbus would recognize, except for the enduring use of wind and sail in man's stormy love affair with the sea. Many of the crews began the adventure 2 months earlier in Lisbon. Now Boston is the last port of call before the test of seamanship and courage in the race back to Europe. All the sailors have this in common: one of the great voyages of history as their inspiration. Beyond that, they range across every age and background. There is Margaret Holt, 71 years old, daughter and granddaughter of master mariners. Since her late 60s, Margaret has sailed round the world in tall ships. She's on board the British-owned Soren Larsen, working her passage like others 50 years younger.
I'd always had a longing to go to sea, just a feeling inside that I wanted to go to sea like Daddy. And my mother used to say, girls don't go to sea, girls do nice things.
Paul Bew is a professional, already a skipper at 24. He leads a crew of inexperienced young sailors aboard the Greater Manchester Challenge, built in a job creation scheme for the city's unemployed.
I'm afraid I'm hooked on sailing. I love being out in the sea. In the whole of the Columbus tall ships, it's the only bit that hasn't changed since Christopher Columbus sailed. I just love being out there. It's just us, the wind, the waves, the sailing. Brilliant.
Andrei Svirida is a cadet on the Russian training ship Krusenstern. For him, the tall ships race is one step towards a life's ambition.
It was a dream of every small boy to be a captain, to be a cosmonaut. As for me, I'm dreaming about captain. And maybe my dream will come true, I don't know.
Among all the tall ships, the Krusenstern is the only link with sailing as it used to be. Once called the Padua, she was part of a fleet of cargo carriers which all began with the letter P. One of her sister ships was the Peking, here sailing out of Hamburg in 1929. The days when square riggers pitched and tossed along every trade route from Liverpool to Shanghai were almost over by the First World War. Only a few stubborn survivors like the Peking and the Padua defied progress for a while longer. Life before the mast was much the same for these men as it had been 100 years before. In a forced 10 with the waves crashing over the ship, the love affair with the sea was sorely tested. But the sails must be taken in, however frozen the fingers, with only a swaying footrope between sailor and deck, perhaps 160 feet below. storm abated, life on board could take on a homely air. Like any veteran of the Cape Horn run, the ship's dog enjoyed itself when the opportunity offered. With perhaps weeks between ports, fresh meat could only come from livestock kept on board. Unlike sheep, pigs were good sailors. How many of the ship's chickens lived to sail another day is not recorded. Today's seafarers, racing tall ships for fun and excitement, can only marvel at men who worked them for half a lifetime. In the 1970s, armchair mariners could relive the age of sail on television through the Aeneid line. Week by week, as the drama unfolded, viewers saw the fictional Charlotte Rhodes take to the high seas. In 1992, the self-same Charlotte Rhodes, in real life, the Soren Larsen, competes for Britain in the Columbus tall ships race. Once in Boston, the crew of the Soren Larsen, like all the others, must steady their nerves and prepare for the last leg of their journey. It will take them further north than anything Columbus attempted. Their destination is Liverpool, 3,000 miles away.
This trip is special because it's celebrating 500 years of the discovery of America, celebrating Columbus. It's special for us because it's the furthest, certainly the furthest I've been, and it's the first time this boat's crossed the Atlantic. The crew are 12 young people that have raised the money themselves to come sailing with us, so they're quite switched on, very nice folk, and none of them have crossed the Atlantic before, and they've only sailed for 2 days before as well. The great thing about the Ocean Youth Club is it's open to everyone. We're not closed. Anyone can come sailing with us. The people that come sailing here, they stay on this trip. They've stayed on for a month. They've learnt a lot about themselves. They've learnt a lot about sailing, a lot about life. And the great thing is they're going to come back and sail with the club and run watches with the club, so other young people, like folk watching this, can phone us up and come sailing with us. That's great. I think the fears of being away from land. We're going to be away from land for 3 weeks. When we crossed last time, we saw 4 boats in 3 weeks. That's quite lonely, and there's a hell of a lot of water between here and Liverpool. I think it's going to be very variable because the weather systems change on the way back. North Atlantic, they say it is the difficult leg out of a 4, so it is going to be variable. I personally think there's going to be 1 or 2 pretty nasty storms, but we're prepared for it. We'll ride them, so it's not going to be an easy run, but we'll be there.
Do you have any spur hats? Huh? No.
It's not proving an easy ride for the young Russians on the Krusenstern. They're short of funds. But this being America, market forces take over. They're soon selling everything from souvenirs to spare boots. For cadets like Andrei Svirida, it's a break from the serious business of training for a life at sea.
I'm a second-year cadet of Baltic State Fishing Fleet Academy. I'm a future fishman. I'm a future officer. And this is my practice here, about half year. And it's only my first time in America. And we have been in New York, and no, I didn't like New York. Yeah, I don't know why the people seem so busy, and town seems so dirty, and very big town. It's not good. I like Boston. Yeah, it's a nice place. It's like a European city. Yeah, it's a nice place. The people here so friendly.
Over on the Soren Larsen, the crew line up while a distinguished naval man inspects the cut of their jib. For Margaret Hope, meeting the Duke of Edinburgh is an opportunity not to be missed.
Andrew Gates here, sir, from Boston.
We didn't shake
Though they must take on the Atlantic with nothing but sail, electronic navigation is allowed. And there's another concession to 1992. Margaret Holt and the Soren Larsen crew will record their own video diary of the voyage. And so at last, on a calm day with no hint of the weather to come, they invoke the spirit of Columbus and set sail for Liverpool.
Grandfather and father were both sailing ship captains, and I'd always longed to go to sea all my life. And I've told you this before. I used to say to Mummy, I want to go to sea like Daddy, and she used to say, don't be silly, girls don't go to sea, girls do nice things. And so I never had the chance. And then I got married and lived inland, and my husband wasn't interested in the sea. And then after my husband died, I thought, well, if I can't sail on the sea, I'm going to live by the sea. And so my sister and I bought a lovely house overlooking the Isle of Wight and Falls and the Hengistbury Head on either side. And one day I was working, and I had the radio on, BBC radio, and just at the end of the interview, it said a voyage on a sailing ship. I thought, a voyage on a sailing ship? Really, this is what I've waited for forever. So I flew to the phone and rang the BBC. And said, where can I hear it? Where can I find out about this? And in 3 weeks' time, I was sailing for Australia. And that started it. Galley, but when it's rough, it's pretty awful. You get flung about from one place to the other, and crockery and everything goes flying. It's a matter of hanging on all the time like now. But it has its compensation. You do get some extra few hours off, and you have a good night's sleep each night you're on galley.
Go on, heave away. Keep holding. Heave away. Go on, heave away. Heave away. Go on. Come on, sing it! Way haul away, we haul away, look at that! Way haul away, we haul away, go!
2 weeks out of Boston, there's a crisis. Not here on the Soren Larsen, but on the Greater Manchester Challenge. with its young crew skippered by Paul Pugh.
There, you know, we're still obviously preparing stuff, but I'll get an update up when you get alongside in a minute. You're coming up like a express passenger train at the moment.
A force 9 gale has hit the Greater Manchester Challenge hard and may have put paid to her chances in the race. The high winds have broken the gaff, a wooden spar on which part of the sail is hoisted. The Soren Larsen's carpenter comes to the rescue with a replacement improvised from an old plank. The goodwill gesture is ferried over and will soon have the stricken ketch on her way again. But it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. And for Margaret Holt, the heavy weather is all part of the fun.
I love it when it's rough, but I don't like it when it's calm and just crawling along. I love it when the waves are coming up and going into 15-foot trough.
It was last autumn when Margaret left England to go to sea. She joined the Soren Larsen in Australia, long before the tall ships race started. Now, as she comes into Liverpool after almost a year away from home, her sister Audrey is waiting to welcome her. One more family reunion among many thousands these docks have seen. When the greetings are over, the crew of the Soren Larsen gather for the last time to celebrate the result of the race. They've come first in their class.
All the winds were foul and the voyage was long, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. I thought I heard the old man say, it's time for us to leave her.
I'll miss the ship very much, and I'll miss all the permanent crew because it's like another family, really, and we've grown so fond of each other. They're a wonderful bunch of people. Going round the Horn was beautiful. It was really what I flew to Australia to do, because that was what I'd heard my father talk about, so much going around the Horn and mountainous seas. And when we were young, we used to say, well, how high is that? And he used to say, oh, higher than the house, you know. And we used to think it couldn't be, but it is. And the hush was wonderful. It was a wonderful, poignant feeling. It's an experience I will never, never forget.
To win is not the priority. To see people internationally get on and to see people going sailing is a priority. To win is excellent and it highlights what we're doing, and I'm proud of that.
Faces all aglow, turn your back on America, Liverpool, here we go! Cross! Winds in the Atlantic Ocean, now we're home.
I expected a lot worse. I was really preparing myself because everybody says North Atlantic. You know, you don't want to do that. I was expecting some pretty bad weather. In the end, it was the best sail of the whole event. We had everything. We had no wind, we had fog, we had breakages we managed to repair, and we saw lots of other boats. On the way across, we saw 2 boats. On the way back, we saw lots of boats. And we had some of the fastest sailing we've had on the trip, and we did a noon-to-noon run, which is 24 hours of 211 miles, which is fast. And we did 90 miles in 9 hours, which is certainly a record for me on this boat. So we did some very fast sailing.
The Krusenstern is yet another win, this time in the 300-foot windjammer class. But while others celebrate the joys of victory, Andre is on galley duty. His 200 shipmates have got to eat.
Не, надо что-нибудь такое замочить.
When shore leave comes at last, Andre seeks out the 2 Merseyside institutions whose fame has reached him in Russia, the Beatles and Liverpool Football Club.
My memories about the club of Liverpool, the football club, and the Museum of Beatles is to me my memory, and about the city, about people, so friendly for us, for sailors, and I guess it's memory about new meeting, about new friends, with the man, I guess. It was my first such voyage. It was my first time outside of my country, and it was my first voyage under the sail, and all the first, and it's great. I will ever remember it.
Unaccustomed as they are to walking on dry land, the crews march to St. George's Hall for the prize giving. It's the centrepiece of the welcome Liverpool has laid on for them. The crews leaving Liverpool's sea parade today have not known hardship like the old-timers who sailed for a living. But much of what those men experienced will never change as long as ships cross the oceans on wind power alone. Going aloft in a sudden storm, the sound of a stiff breeze in a full set of sails, and the comradeship that comes from facing the elements together for months at a time. For the sailors in the Columbus race, these are memories they will keep all their lives.